I have always loved Thanksgiving, especially with the turkey and the desserts and all that. And even when I was growing up, it was the absolute one of the best holidays ever after Christmas, of course. But throughout my entire childhood up to my adulthood, there has never been any much an issue. But there's only one time I was the freakiest of all. My name is Rachel. This happened when I was just 20 years old. I had been invited to my parents' home for Thanksgiving. I would have taken my fiance Roger, but he couldn't do the work, so which was okay. And my parents promised to save some of the food so that I could bring it home with him. Though when I met my parents, I helped her to prepare some of the last cooking and setting at the table. But when she told me to put a third plate, but I said, Roger isn't even coming. But my dad told me that our next door neighbor, Mr. Davis, was invited. I remember Mr. Davis and his late wife, Carol. She was a sweet lady, like a grandmother type. But sadly, she passed away when I was in my senior year of high school. I mean, I loved Carol. She was like a grandmother to me. But I thought it was a nice idea to my parents to invite Mr. Davis to come over. He did come over later, and during dinner he was friendly and cheerful as always. But that changed. After dinner, Mom and Dad went actually in the kitchen when I sat alone with Mr. Davis by the table, small talking, when he said I was beautiful. And I'd like, you look like your mother. I didn't take that as a bad thing, and then he asked if I was single. And he then said something that took me off guard. Do you would you consider to be dating an older man like me? Turns out that Mr. Davis had a crush on me for a year, and now he asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. But Mr. Davis is in his 40s, and I told him that I was already engaged, but then Mr. Davis said something that made me furious. He said, you should dump him and be with me, since I am a more mature man who knows how to take care of you. I felt so disgusted. Especially, I loved Roger. He was the most sweetest, kindest man ever. But that Mr. Davis had his audacity telling me to dump Roger so that I could be with him, who was probably the same age as my dad, which is wrong in my mind. I would never go so far dating a man who could be my own father, for God's sake. So I told him, I said no, but then he put his hand on my leg and said, we fit together. I stood up. I said him never to touch me again. My parents heard it and ran out from the kitchen and asked what happened. Mr. Davis made a lie of what happened, but I told him that he tried to tell me to leave Roger so I could be with him and how he touched me on my leg. When my dad heard it, he was furious. He grabbed Mr. Davis by the collar and threw him out and told him, you never get around my daughter ever again. And then he closed the door and locked it. Sure, it was disturbing to say at least. But when I told Roger, he said that if he was there, he would have kicked Mr. Davis' butt. Well, I was later told by my mom that Mr. Davis will never bother me ever again since, well, he moved out. And I was glad to hear that. Even when he had his wife, Carol, was alive, he wasn't even anything like it. He was a sweet man. He was well liked in the neighborhood. I can understand if it was his loss of his wife that made him feel lonely, but going so far to asking a girl that is twice younger his age, and or at least half of his own age, and even to be so creepy as much as trying to convince her to leave her current boyfriend or fiance so that she could be with him, that's creepy and disgusting. So, to Mr. Davis, I'm glad you moved away so that I didn't have to see you ever again. Thank you. I have heard plenty of stories of other people's experience, like scariest and terrifying about the Thanksgiving holiday. I have a story of my own, but it's not scary or terrifying, but disturbing to say at least. My name is Philip. I was about 22 years old when this all happened. It also involved my then fiancee, now wife Amy, same age. We had actually been invited over to my family's home, and my family loved her. It say at least I thought everyone did. But you may understand why. And while we were eating dinner with my family, with my parents and my younger sister Laura, Laura asked Amy some questions about the upcoming wedding, which I mean I can see that Laura really adored Amy so much. Even my dad was excited about it. But while we were eating, the doorbell rang. I was like, are they expecting any deliveries or any other guests or something? Maybe neighbors was dropping by or something. But so my mom went to open the door. Soon she came back with a young girl. Turned out it was Penny, my ex-girlfriend when I was in high school. I haven't seen her since. I will give you a brief backstory about Penny and me. Penny and I were dating back in our senior year of high school, but I broke up with her since so because she was so clingy of all the time. So then I asked my mom why was she there. Penny said that she was there because it was planning for my wedding with Penny, which took both my dad and Laura by surprise because they weren't even aware of this. Neither was I. And I was dumbfounded. I asked my mom with anger in my voice, and she said, I never approved Amy because in my mind she is not fit for my son. Because you should be with someone so sweet like Penny instead. Even my dad and my sister told my mom, like, have you lost your mind? And my dad's like, it's not gonna happen. Even Penny tried to flirt with me, which didn't even work. But then, she really took the next step by throwing a drink in Amy's face and clothes and told her she was just a gold digger, and which wasn't even true for the fact. But I had enough. I stood up. Penny thought that I was going to take her away, but I pushed her away and left with Amy. But before that, I apologized to my dad and to Laura all this. And I told my mom that if she isn't apologizing to Amy, she will not be allowed to be at the wedding, and in fact, she would even be allowed to see her grandkids, which made her furious and sad at the same time, but I didn't care. I just left. My mom tried to reach out to me several times by convincing to take Penny back, but it didn't even happen. I just blocked her number afterwards. In fact, I later learned that my dad did divorce from my mom because he couldn't even handle it anymore. It was like she had lost her sanity or something. So I later did get married to Amy, and we were happy. I haven't seen or talked to my mom ever since. Neither had even Laura. In fact, from what I heard, my mom still lives in the house by herself, crying, hoping that maybe that I will get my senses back and realize I should be with Amy to make my mom happy. But to be fair, Mom, it's not happening. Not in a million years. I'm happy to be with Amy, who is my wife now, and also we even have two daughters of our own, and my dad and Laura love them. I had never allowed my mom to see them ever once. Then even ask why they hadn't even seen their grandmother. Well, I will tell them eventually when they were old enough to understand the reason. To my mom, let us never meet again. Same thing for you, Penny. My name is Dirk. I have to say, Thanksgiving has been one of my favorite holidays of the year other from Christmas. And throughout my entire childhood, I have no issues with it. Like there were no problems, anything. But I have read and heard stories of people having some pretty terrifying, scary moments when it all happened, a particular holiday. I thought maybe that this might not happen to everyone. Maybe it just happened to random those who had the bad luck. Well, it did actually eventually happen to my family. It was only like one time. Anyways, when this happened, I was about 22 years old. I was having Thanksgiving with my family, just with me and my parents, of course. Suddenly, someone was banging the door and ringing the doorbell repeatedly. My dad walked up and opened the door, and there was our next door neighbor's girlfriend, Cindy. She had bruises on her face, and even her left eye was a black eye. My dad pulled her in, locked the door behind her. My mom saw her and freaked out. She was told by my dad to take up her upstairs to the bathroom, and I should lock the back door and the windows. I did do that without even questioning. When I was doing it, I was like, what happened to Cindy? Cindy is the same age as me. She's a sweet girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. She's a very sweet person. It's like she was never do anything to harm anyone. But she was living with her boyfriend, Roger. Roger was at the same age as her as me, 22. But the thing is, every time when I meet Roger, either on my way home from work or just doing some errands, he is always very much friendly. We have no problems. Then I went upstairs to see how Cindy was doing, and since my mom was helping to take care of some of the bruises and and clean off her face from the blood and all that, I heard that her boyfriend had been drinking. I knew for a fact that he did drink, but this was over the limit what she had experienced. It turned out he had been drinking quite a lot. And, well, let's say the reason why he beating Cindy so badly is because that she hadn't cooked the Thanksgiving dinner right. So he started beating her, and when he used the bathroom, she took the opportunity to run out of her house, and she went to our house. And suddenly, when I was in the bathroom with them, there was a slamming against the door. Well, we didn't even have to think twice what it could be caused. It was Roger. He screamed, "You hand over Cindy right now, and you don't get involved in our lives. You hear that?" And when Cindy heard this, she freaked out. She was crying. I mean, like literally crying. My mom called the police, but my dad told him, "Just leave. Don't bother her again." He screamed so loud, but it made even Roger even more furious. he started slamming against himself against the door, but luckily it was firm and didn't move an inch. But luckily, the police soon arrived. They arrested him, and he did end up behind bars for a couple of years for the beating and all that. Cindy chose to live in the same house that was hers from the start. But shortly afterwards, me and Cindy started to spend some time, and eventually we started dating. And I don't regret it. And the next year's Thanksgiving, I was actually back with my family's home and with Cindy, and well, let's say we had unexpected news for them. We told them that Cindy and I we were expecting a child, and it was in fact a girl. And let's say though my parents was over the moon of happiness, you may wonder, what about Roger? Well, he tried to reach out to Cindy for an apology and asking for her to take him back. Well, let's say that not what happened for many different reasons. One, he broke the restraining order that she had put on him, which gave him a lot more time in jail. For a very second reason, why would she even go back to someone who was so abusive that particular time? She loved me, and we are expecting a baby soon. It's not like she would never want to take him back after what she went through that particular Thanksgiving. So, to Roger, I really hope that you stay away from her from now on, because if you don't, you will have me to deal with. So, yeah, stay away from us.